So the next tree we're going to look at is the Acacia Jungle 1 tree. And it's something actually that I missed in the first video when we were exporting the OBJs, is that there is one other different type of leaf variation in here. So I think what we'll do is we'll just export that now. African Acacia Jungle 1 OBJ. I'm going to do this nice and fast. Leaves underscore single. And the other one we'll do as, did that grab them all? Yeah, it did. We'll do the other one as leaves underscore batched. Just like that. Let's go into the folder for the OBJ. And it looks a bit messy. You can actually go in here and you can delete these files here. We don't need them. We only need the 3D objects. Let's delete the leaves. So we've got the leaves batched. We've got the leaves single and the main, which is the trunk and the branches. So the next step would be to process your textures. And I said earlier that I'd let you guys carry on and convert the textures yourself, but I wanted to run you through it. I didn't want anyone to be confused. So the first thing I did was I imported the single leaf, which is, let's turn these off so you can see it, which is this leaf here. And you can also find what material this is. So if you go to the material tab on the leaf, you can see it's loaded in summer there. If you go up here to the materials, it's either this one or it's this one. So if I click the Acacia Cluster Summer, you can see, well, that's not right. I'll click the Acacia Front 1 Summer and you can see that they match. And then you can click on this location and you can browse where these textures live. So these live in side Acacia Jungle 1, leaves, and then leaf front 1. The clustered ones are leaf front 2. So anyway, I imported those textures into Nuke. So we got the subsurface amount, just converted that. That's looking okay, but it looks a little bit on the dark side. So what you could do is you could create a grade node after the shuffle as we did in the other video, and you could just lift those values up just a little bit until they seem a little bit more reasonable. And when you convert down, that's fine. And also a way to test this is to see if the values are going over 1 in any area. And that's looking very dark, so maybe we could just turn that down, something 1.7. View from here now, and those white values are hitting around 0.95, which is kind of fine. That's a good way to gauge it. Okay, so onto the Acacia Front 1 glossy map. Let's take a look at it. Way too dark. There's no way this is going to work in a 3D software package. And I think that's actually down to SpeedTree not color correcting their sRGB textures properly. So I've graded that up to something more sensible. Then we add the conversion, and in my opinion that's still too dark. I mean, our values are lying 0.09, so that's 9%. So we can actually just grade that up, something like 16. Let me do it. Okay, onto the diffuse map. Now that seems a much more sensible value. I graded it up just a touch. So the values aren't exceeding 0.1 really. Well, there you go. In certain areas we're getting 0.8. That's about right. Then we add the conversion. That looks fine. Onto the front 1 subsurface. That's a very bright texture already, which is going to convert nicely to there. That looks fine. Onto the acacia bark. That's a very nice texture. You can see the values there are looking nice. It looks like it's well lit. And you can see our values are sort of, if we go to sort of like a white area, around 0.86, which is cool. I also stripped out a little bit of the green in this Acacia Bark 2 texture. Wasn't a big lover of the green in that. Then we do the conversion, and that's looking cool. Okay, so the glossy map. So the glossy map is kind of on the dark side, and we don't want our bark to be super shiny. So the whiter this gets, the rougher our surface gets. So I just graded that up. Then we do the conversion afterwards, and I'd say that that map is still way too black. So we got black levels lying at 0.004. That is practically black there. So you could lift this up even more to something like 3. Although we have to be careful there that the white levels are getting clipped. That's alright, that's fine. Let's move on to the Acacia Front 2. Those values seem to be quite nice in there. I convert, that's looking fine. Well, I'm not too fond of this texture, I don't think it's holding up very well. Onto the Acacia Full Front 2 glossy map. Way too dark. There's no way this is going to work. So I grade it up, then I do the conversion. That's more sensible. So you can see the blacks are at 0.04 and the whites are at sort of 0.4, which is still actually too dark. Let's lift that up, something like 12. 11. Yeah, that's looking better. So when I'm doing this, I'm looking at these red, green, and blue values. So if we look here, 0.03, that's the equivalent of going into the shader and sliding the roughness to 0.3 here. I'll just drop down a material so you can see it. It's essentially the same as doing that. So that's where our black levels are sitting, which is way too shiny. I mean, sort of the shiniest the leaf could get. Well, leaves can get pretty shiny, but I'd expect most leaf values to be between about 0.2 and maybe 0.3, something around those kind of levels, depending on what kind of leaf it is. Okay, so that's looking alright. Let's go to our subsurface amount. This map is practically useless. I mean, what the hell is that? So I've graded it up. We could probably make a better noise texture. We could probably make a better subsurface amount texture using procedural methods, which I think we probably will do because that just is black. That's not going to work. The subsurface color, that's a bit better. I graded it up. Added some more saturation to it. I think maybe pushed it a little bit too much there. Then we can write that out. So that's what it looks like when we've converted to the ACES color space. So that looks a little bit more sensible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save all these images out. I've also saved this scene as a texture conversion version Acacia Jungle 1, so you guys can hop in to see these settings. Let's import our new Acacia Jungle 1 tree. One thing I noticed actually when I was showing you guys the texture conversion is that I hadn't changed the BRDF on the palm bark to GGX. Just make sure all your RS materials say GGX on them. Cool. We'll copy and paste the palm. I'm going to turn this off, paste it, rename this to Acacia Jungle 1, keep everything lowercase. Jump inside. We'll browse for the Acacia Jungle 1, obj, main. Just copy all these. So in here we'll put the single leaves. Oops, let's paste it. leave single, and in here we'll put the leaves batched. We'll also remove these materials here. Let's plug this into the merge node. So when we view now, I'll press space G in the viewport to frame up, same as F in Maya. Just like that. I think what we'll do is we'll view the bark first. Let's shade the bark. Let's jump into the palm materials. Let's be nice and efficient with this. I think we'll grab all of these nodes, create another material network, rename this to, copy and paste that, jungle1 underscore materials. Jump inside, paste them. Let's replace the diffuse texture with our bark texture from the Acacia Jungle 1 folder. Do exactly the same for the roughness. Okay, that's looking cool. Normal map. I didn't save out an ACES normal map, so go up one directory and we'll use the normal map from this folder here, so bark to normal. And that's pretty much it. Let's apply the bark material from here. Excuse me. So apply the bark material from here, and we'll call this Acacia Jungle 1 bark out. Copy that. Paste it onto here. So we're keeping things nice and organized. Drop it on top. Put a network box around it. Go into the camera, lock the camera, let's move back out. Redshift, open the render view. And I think after this shading for the Acacia Jungle 1 tree, we'll probably do one or two more. I'll let you guys do the rest. And I've always got the scene files for you guys to jump into if you need to see anything. But I'm more or less reusing the same techniques. I'm just copy and pasting, particularly for the bark materials, just replacing the diffuse and glossy textures and using all the same noises. It's just a much faster way of working. So that's looking pretty good. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. That's really nice and easy to set up. I'm just going to click File, Save As. Just so if we do something wrong, we've always got a version to go back to. Okay, so on to the leave single. So viewing from here. Make sure the camera's locked. We'll move around. And I think we'll just, I don't know, view, yeah, we'll view down here or something. That's fine. Kind of looks like we need to adjust the camera clipping plane on the camera. So I'll do that. Select the test cam. The near clipping is set to 1 meter, so Houdini's working in meters, which is why when we're trying to get close to it, it's clipping. So if we put 0.01, then we're able to get a centimeter, 1 centimeter away before it starts clipping. So that's cool, frame that up. Might even drop the file clipping down to reduce any artifacts. Let's jump into the materials, and we're going to drop down an RS material. And I'm going to call this Acacia Jungle 1 underscore leaves single. leaves. Leaves, single, cool. Create a redshift material. Copy this, paste it. You guys know the drill. Out. We can apply that to there. Drop down the base properties. RS texture to import our diffuse texture. Cassia Jungle 1, leaves. I think the full front, was it the full front one that was the right one? I can't quite remember which was the single leaf texture. I'll just hit preview. That allows me to preview the file. Yep, we're in the right folder. So Cassia front 1. Let's plug that in. And just make sure that's applied. Open up the render view. Hit render. So now we got that. Looks amazing. Let's jump back in. Let's also set up our roughness map. So I think we'll rename this to diffuse. Copy and paste it. I'll turn off the render, save it from crashing. Roughness or glossiness, rough. Turn the always on top off so we can see. Glossiness map, let's load it in. Hit render again. Okay, that's not looking too bad, that looks alright. Make sure we've got the test cam selected as well. Bucket rendering. That's actually not looking too bad, considering we haven't really changed the values in here. Let's drop down an RS normal map. We'll plug that one in as well. I'll take a snapshot so we can compare the difference. Let's load in our normal map. And as usual, I don't convert the normal maps. Let's hit render. See what we're looking like there. Okay, that's looking pretty interesting. So that adds instantly quite a nice level of detail there, but we're looking way too reflective. So we'll drop down an RS change range. And hopefully by now you guys will sort of start to adjust and understand what's happening here with the RS change range. So if our surface is too glossy, then that means our levels are too black. So we just lift the black levels up, so 0. Push those black levels up. Let's try 0.1 for now, see what that looks like. I think we'll hit. Oh, we're viewing the screenshot. Okay, so that's 0.1. So I'm going to switch to 0, 0.1, 0.2, and as we lift those black levels up, it's getting rougher. So I think 0.1 is looking quite nice. Why not add even more variation to these leaves? Let's take an RS noise, like so. And we're going to multiply this noise in with our roughness map, just to give even more breakup. Let's drop down a redshift material, rename that to test, plug the RS noise into the surface, drop this onto the leaves. Let's have a mess around with the noise settings, complexity right up. My usual method is just go straight to about 23 with this. And I tend to drop the amplitude gain down until we start getting some interesting shapes there. And I think that's looking all right. Let's scale this noise. I think we scale it down to make it larger. I think something like that. I think that looks kind of cool. So let's view from the roughness map. Let's plug that in. So that's our roughness map there. Take an RS multiply node. It's really important that you use redshift nodes not mantra nodes. If you're using mantra nodes, it won't work in Redshift. So we're multiplying this noise in with the roughness map, which gives us that. That's looking kind of cool. But the black levels on our noise are looking too black. So as usual, we take an RS change range. Let's lift up those black levels, just like that, until they start to become a little bit more subtle there. I think that's looking cool. Maybe even a little bit rougher. And then after the, let's move all this to the side. And after the multiply node, let's just make sure that our black levels aren't going too low. So I usually add an RS change range right at the end of the branch before it goes into the material, just so I can be certain that my black levels aren't going below, let's say, 0.18, something around that. So then we've got this. So now we're seeing our noise mixed in with the roughness map, but we're controlling those black levels. So no black is going below 0.18 there. Let's plug this into the shader, drop that on top. So now we've got that. So let's take a snapshot and we're going to compare the difference between going from here. So there you go. I'm just switching between. And that's just added a nice amount of breakup in the roughness. That's looking really cool. I think what we can actually do is, let's plug this back in to the reflection roughness. Wait for that to update. I'm going to restart it. And I think we can actually lower these black levels, make it slightly shinier. Yeah, I think something around that is fine. Maybe 0.14. I might decide to change this later, but I think overall that's looking kind of cool. Okay, so we've sort of set up the material, but we've got the outside of the leaf, which we don't want to see. So the way we do this in Redshift is by adding an RS sprite node. And you're always going to want to use this for leaves in Redshift. So let's plug the material into the input. And in here, what we're going to put in is our alpha map. So we'll stick our alpha map in there. And we'll plug the out color into the surface. Let's do a refresh. And now we've got our leaves cut out by the alpha. And I'm actually not a big lover of what they've done here with the leaf. I think it would be actually nicer to have that tip on the leaf at the top. So we may decide to update the alpha on this texture. So I think that looks pretty cool. Let's just try increasing the normal map to 2. I just want to see what that looks like. I think that's looking kind of cool. Maybe like 1.5. And if I was getting this close, I probably wouldn't set it that high. But seeing as though we're viewing everything from distance, I kind of want these details to kind of stand out. So the closer you get in, the more subtle you want to be with a normal map. And the further out you are, I'd probably increase that just so you can see those details. But don't push it too far because it will start to look really fake. Okay, so why not add some noise in here as well? Some dirt noise. So we'll jump into the palm materials. And we're going to grab the noise we set up here for the palm fronds, because that looked kind of cool. Let's jump back in and we'll paste it in here. Let's plug in our leave single material from here. We'll plug that into the base material there. And we'll plug this into the sprite node. Just like that. I'm just going to turn this dirt material to red First, I'll copy the parameters so I've got the settings stored. Let's change this to red. I want to be able to see it. I think we can increase the contrast a little bit. Something like that. There you go. I think that's looking kind of nice. On the dirt, let's paste those values back in. Kind of looks like it's not doing much there. Let's make it darker. Lighter. Just want to do it so it stands out. I think that's looking pretty cool. Let's set up our transmission, or the backlighting translucency. So create a little bit more space here. Keep things nice and organized. We'll lower all of this so we can clearly understand that this is for the bark and this is for the leaves. RS texture. Sub or SSS color. Plug this into the translucency color. Let's load in our color map there. We'll also copy and paste this. Change this to amount. Subsurface amount. Let's plug that in to the translucency weight. That's doing something interesting there. I'm going to grab our test material and plug in the amount. I want to see what values we're hitting there. So the whiter these values are coming off the SSS amount, the more SSS we're getting. Let's drop down an RS change range as usual. And in here, I'm just going to lift up those black levels. Something like that. There you go. That's looking pretty cool. And just make sure that these values are ranging between 0 and 1. So like I said earlier, anything that's being pumped into the parameters on this shader needs to be between 0 and 1. If you break that, you're technically making it a not very realistic shader. So okay, let's plug that back into the translucency weight. Reapply our leaf single out. Right there, that's starting to work quite nicely. Let's view it. I'm not a big lover of what I've done with the dirt. I'm not too convinced with that. Let's hit re-render. Take a snapshot and we're going to remove. Let's completely turn down the backlighting. I'm just going to snip that. Sorry, snip the weight rather. Let's turn the weight down to 0, just make sure that's off. Snapshot, and we're just going to switch between them if we can. Let's do a re-render. Snapshot. So there you go. We're getting a little bit of backlighting in there. That's helping. And this is going to stand out. It's going to be a lot more obvious when there's light behind this. Yeah, I think that's looking kind of cool. So I zoomed out and I did a render, and to be honest with you, the leaf shading is fine, but I'm not happy with the actual leaf itself, the leaf geometry. It's really flat. I'm going to go back into the into speed tree, and we're going to bend these leaves. Just press Control 2. Make sure the render's turned off, so we can see the geometry there. But this says Acacia front 1. We're going to go to Edit under Meshes. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to extend this all the way up. And we're going to add in some segments in here to bend the leaf. Why is that not working? It's a little bit weird. I'm going to add some segments in the middle as well, so we can actually fold it in the middle. There you go, just like that. I think that should be fine. Let's cross these over to the high mesh, low mesh, and that should update. Let's go to orientation, and we want to curl these. Let's curl them downwards, but we also want to add some 0.5 for variation, so they're going in different directions. And let's fold them just like that. We'll also add variation in here, maybe like 0.3. So we're all doing different things. Back to normal mode, and they're looking a hell of a lot better now. Yeah, I'm happy with those. Let's go to File, Export selected as Mesh, and we're going to save these as leave single, and I'll probably add an extension after this just in case if we need to go back. Leave single underscore curled. I think it's fine. I'm going to take a snapshot here. Let's go back into the materials, or into Acacia Jungle 1 rather, and where this says leave single, we're going to load in our curled ones. See what that looks like now in the viewport. That looks a lot better. I'm going to hit render. There you go, and they're looking significantly better. Much, much better. Far more natural. I think it was important to show that step of using a flat, plain leaf versus a straight leaf. The straight leaves look awful, so I'd always bend the leaves, even if you're viewing from a distance. And you can see there we're actually getting more backlighting with the curled leaves. It looks significantly better. So if you're going to be creating trees and shading them, always remember to bend your leaves. Look a lot better there. Nice. Also make sure to plug back in your SSS amount back into the shader because we disconnected that.